Here. Yeah.
We're having just so everybody knows, we're having a problem getting the video feeds in. We have the main one, but we can't get the rest of them right now. So it'll maybe a few minutes to get that back up.
Matt, could we test with your video, please?
Says I cannot start my video
Okay.
because the host has stopped it.
Yes, but I have not.
Okay.
Just think. I'm going to mute us for a moment. Matt, could you try now?
It's not working for me.
Still not working. I guess, yeah, we can try right here. I don't know what other code. I haven't changed anything. Let's see, so. Try that.
There we are.
All right. Okay.
All right, it should start coming up now, Pamela. Okay, got a tool. Let's come up. And are we ready to start recording? Okay. Good evening. The April 13th, 2023 Whatcom County Planning Commission meeting is called to order. I will call the roll, let me know if you are here. Kelvin Barton, that's me, I'm here. Daniel Dahlquist. Atul Dasmani.
Here.
Jim Hansen.
Here.
Stephen Jackson.
Here.
Julie Jefferson. Julie, I see your name there.
Sorry, I'm trying to turn it on. I'm here.
Kim Lund. Dominic Masseri. Here. Scott Van Dalen. Okay. All right, please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a lot of visitors here tonight, and I want to welcome you. And I understand you likely want to speak to us, and this is the time for you to address us, any topic that you would like to talk about. Assistant Planning Director Roberge will tell you a little more of what our limits are, but you're very welcome to come here and speak to us. Well, Planning Director Roberge, would you give us the department update?
Sure. Well, first, I want to thank you all for coming. I do want to just make sure you understand that you certainly can testify tonight and talk during this time period. The Planning Commission won't and doesn't hear the mine application. That will be done by the county examiner. And I've already extended. I'm happy to sit down and talk about the questions sent in the letter. I want to let you know that you're happy to testify at the planning commission.
You make a recommendation.
Not on active. So maybe a couple more things that
Yes.
maybe I can
Yes,
keep going.
yes.
The planning development services, we have been we're on a hiring, we're looking to hire folks. We had 8 vacancies. We've got 1 person hired and started. We're at varying states with the other 7 right now, where 6 of those are backfilling positions where people have moved on or advanced. And 2 of those are new positions, but we are busy doing a lot of hiring right now. And we're excited, we're getting some good folks, and you will probably see some of those folks in the not too distant future. The next thing that you guys have on your agenda, we will not be meeting at our the next meeting in 2 weeks, but we will be meeting for the first meeting in May. And we'll be starting a conversation about home-based businesses and special events.
All right, thank you. So it's time now for commissioner comments. Commissioner Masseri.
Open session was on our agenda. Commissioner.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Forgive me, because we have a lot here that want to talk. So Commissioner Masseri corrected me, it is open session for public comment. So Tammy is our planning commission coordinator. Tammy, would you go ahead and take over?
I will. Yes, thank you. So, welcome again to the meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live, and the audio is being recorded. It will be posted to the county website. So, as noted on our website, members can speak here. We also can have attendees at times who wish to speak online. So during the open public comment session, speakers may not speak to items that are scheduled on the agenda for public hearing tonight. So that would be the public participation plan in relation to the comp plan. So as long as you're not speaking on that part during this section, we could have a time later on for the public hearing for that piece. All right, so if you would like to provide public comment at this time, we'll take comments from the people in the room first, and then if anyone joins online, we'll go there. So most of you have signed up sheet. If you have not done so, please do so when you go up to speak so that we can have the correct spelling of your name for the record. All right. So if you're participating, well, we don't have anyone remote right now. There's no attendees, so I'm not going to skip that part. And I'm not sure who signed up first, but who would like to speak first?
I have just a question. Is that appropriate?
Do you want to do it here, or did you want to do it?
Well, you spoke about the process of what's going on. I'm a little confused. If you could explain the process for pre-reviews, the mine issue, quarry issue, how this commission is involved with it, and how it moves forward.
Well, it might be more appropriate if we sat down, and I'm happy to sit down and have that conversation. But I don't want. Maybe if you guys want to have that conversation, I'm happy to go in the other room, chat about that a little bit.
Or we could do that. That's fine.
I'm happy to sit down, and I saw the list of questions that you submitted. Like I said, I'm happy to talk about it. So I'm happy to talk about it. I don't know if they all are, so I don't know, but I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay, so what will happen is when speakers go up, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. There'll be a timer on screen as well. If you don't happen to notice the timer's up, we'll announce that your time is up after the 3 minutes, okay? When you do go up, if you could announce your name for the record, your full name, that would be great. So who would like to go first? Shall we go with who signed up first? I can take the listing. Has everyone who wanted to speak signed up? The clerk, Okay, let's go with who signed up first. Andrew Clark, please. So once you get up there, even though I said your name, please state it for the record.
Yes, hello. Thanks for the time. My name is Andrew Clark. I am a concerned homeowner. Wanting to speak a little bit about the proposed ranch quarry mine. My family property where I live with my wife and 5-year-old daughter is about 50 yards from the access road of this mine, with a direct line of sight from our kitchen window and our front door and our bedroom. So needless to say, this mine is going to be unbelievably impactful and really alter, kind of devastate our quality of life. I did along with our group, we have formed a group called Home Whatcom, that's homeowners post mine expansion. And we did prepare a list of questions to ask the department here. As Assistant Director Rivera has let us know that this is maybe not the most appropriate venue for voicing those questions, but I still think it's important for me to get up here and say that not just myself, but a wide range of community members that live in Eastern Whatcom County, once learning about this project, are adamantly opposed to it. It just is not the appropriate place to have a mine of this scale. The population density in our area is, while it's not great, I mean, we're a very rural community, but this mine site is surrounded by dozens and dozens of family homes and farms. And it's where a lot of us make our lives, and we really enjoy our quality of life out there. So I know that this commission doesn't necessarily have much power in influencing the way that this proposal is going to be handled, but I just put it on the record that we would urge anybody to do anything within their power to help us in opposing this project and preserving our quality of life. Thanks for your time.
Okay, next up, John Rudolph. John Rudolph.
Oh.
So go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
John Biddulph, Biddulph. I'm speaking in regard to the Ranch Quarry surface mine. This is a giant, monstrous open pit proposed, 70 acres in size, up to 350 feet deep. We those of us, and I would add that the proposed quarry is within about 700 feet of my property. Now all of us living close to this giant quarry, we would have to figure would be subject to enormous noise from blasting and rock crushing. Now, and there would be everything around would be covered with rock dust and maybe asbestos. Now, some people don't think there's asbestos at the site, but other people I've read about say that they just don't know whether there's asbestos on the site or not. But certainly we don't want to have to be inhaling clouds of asbestos or even rock dust. And it would be, well, if we try to sell our homes, we have to fill out a real estate disclosure statement. We would have to admit that there's this proposed rock quarry. And I just don't think that anybody would buy any of our properties if there's a proposed rock quarry nearby. And it would reduce our home values to almost nothing. Maybe some of you could sell your houses if you have, and buy other properties elsewhere if you have the money, but a lot of us just don't. We would be living under the clouds of dust from the quarry, and we would have, effectively, we would have no place to go. Now, some of us have heard that our wells are going to dry up, we won't have water, and well, what's a house so without a water supply? And there's supposedly going to be adverse effects to fisheries, and there are over 50 houses, some like 50 houses in our area would be affected.
Thank you. Mark Hall? Go ahead and, you have 3 minutes, go ahead and say your full name for the
Okay,
record.
my name is Mark Hall, and I live off of Reese Hill Road. And we just, in the community up there, I think that we feel a little bit like blindsided by this. It's like the past couple of weeks, we found out about this. We're all researching, trying to understand it, make sense of it. And some of us are thinking that this is all set in stone. It's going to happen. And we keep on going to meetings and people are telling us, well, we're not the people that can take care of this, do anything about this. I appreciate that y'all are welcoming us here tonight. I appreciate that you're listening to us. And I'm sure that you're going to give us some guidance going forward after this. But what I want to say is that we want to express how hard this is going to be for that community up there. I don't know if I have my facts right on this or not, but this seems like in 1990, that was designated to be a mineral extraction area, and maybe it made sense back then, but the world has changed since then, and our lives have changed since then, our priorities have changed since then. And when we went to the council meeting the other night, they said the legal department told them that they needed to pay a disclaimer before they said, listen to us. And that was a little bit discouraging because legal departments, money, rich corporations, you know, all that, we're afraid of that. But we have you guys to like stand for us, the public, you know, the taxpayers, people that actually live up there. And whether you can do anything or not, we'd like you to take into account our words tonight and planning. You know, it seems like you could like change your mind if it was set in stone and say this is no longer a good fit for the community. Tell the people that are involved that we think that there's better uses for this land now. There's better places to go to get gravel. I was driving in today and I came to a spot in the road where two big trucks, trailer pulling trucks, had to go around one curve. And for that to happen, one of the trucks had to stop and wait for the other one to go around it. I guarantee if people are having to stop on those roads up there to wait for these trucks, as soon as the trucks get moving again, they're going to want to get around it. There's going to be carnage on the roads up there, not the roadway itself. I've had several accidents in front of where I live. I know that we all know that those roads are dangerous. It's not a good fit for up there. It's not a good fit for our community. Please do what you can to address this issue. And thank you for listening to us tonight.
All right, Jim Klein?
My name is Jim Klein, an enrolled member of Nooksack Indian tribe, and very happy that you people are here to listen to us. As it's been stated, whether you can do anything or not for us, we hope that whatever information that we pass on to you goes to the proper channels so that we can either slow this process down or find another way to get gravel. I'm not sure. I've heard in the past that in Canada, they've been able to dredge the river. That has not been done here in Washington or the United States. I don't know if it has or has not. I'm not somebody that researches all this stuff. I'm here mainly for support for our community. Our community is very sparse in certain ways, but there's a lot of people that are going to be affected drastically by the dust, the trucks, especially past Andrew's house. I mean, like he says, he can see the roadway that goes right in front of his kitchen window. I mean, the Jake brakes that are going to be screaming down the hill. And if they have to turn down to go down Reese Hill Road, there's school kids that are waiting for school buses, and these trucks are not going to be able to just hit the brakes and stop. In the summertime, when we have Ski to Sea on the South Pass Road, that's where the events take place, going down South Pass Road. I don't know how many people are going to be injured or worse. It's going to be terrible. And I don't think that this should be allowed, because that's a hazard to our life. The dust that's going to be created. My wife has double lung cancer. This dust is not going to be any good for her. We're suffering the way it is. We have a lot of doctor's appointments, just like anybody else that has health issues. But like I said in the past, when I came to this meeting and here before, I'm here for support. I don't do a whole lot of education stuff to be able to understand what we're doing in this meeting, but whatever I can do to help support this community, I'm here. And that's my main concern, is to preserve our birds, our wildlife. We have a lot of game up in our area. And we have bear come through our yard, deer, all kinds of wildlife. And we'd like to see that continue on. With this mine proposal, I don't see that happening. We need to do the best that we can to find alternative ways of getting gravel for whatever needs that they need. And the Canadian thing, one more thing is, I don't know that they're going to be going to Canada to deliver this stuff or not, but if they can stop that, that would be another plus. Thank you for your time.
Margie Williams, is that what you said? Go ahead and state the full name for the record.
Thank you. Marjorie Schermerhorn, and I go by M. I live on South Pass Road, property adjacent to the gravel pit, and adjacent it is where my dog takes himself for a walk if he takes off. Then he visits the gravel pit. We were all surprised. I think we were all surprised by this application. And in brief, the application calls for 25 loaded gravel trucks to travel down to South Pass Road and beyond, ×2 on a daily basis. 25 back and forth is 50. South Pass Road will collapse under this type of traffic. It's a given. Our road is unfit for this type of traffic. And on top of that, it's a small town road with deep ditches and no shoulders. South Pass Road is on the route of the Ski to Sea, one of the jewels of Whatcom County, and attracting tourism and participants from around the world, not just Washington. Anyone living here will see those bicyclists come out on a sunny day practicing for the race, not on a weekend day. On a sunny day, could be a Monday, could be a Friday. These bicyclists come out during the weekdays and the weekends, and they're not bound by the schedules of the gravel trucks. They practice for the Ski to Sea or because they enjoy riding their bikes there. It's not a matter of if, but when a bicyclist practicing for the Ski to Sea will be killed by a gravel truck. The beauty of North Whatcom and the biking and hiking opportunities here are an important recruitment tool for our hospital and our medical offices. In my long-time experience managing surgical practices in Bellingham, I can attest that the beauty of South Pass specifically, is enjoyed by the professionals we try to recruit and who take care of our families when they are sick or injured, our families. These doctors and surgeons live in Bellingham city limits and they ride their bikes on South Pass Road on a sunny day. and I can get at the stations whenever that is necessary. Approving the application for this gravel pit will eliminate an important recruitment tool for the healthcare professionals that Bellingham is competing for on an international level. There's a time and a place for everything. Developing, building, and exploiting a gravel pit on Southwest Road is not the right place. We are not an industrial zone. We are a small community and a hub for wildlife and tourists. It is not the right time either. 30+ years ago, industry and development were progress, but now we live in the 2020s, not the 80s or 90s. We know that this will create irreversible damage to a stunning location in a small community, which we cannot explain to the next generation. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for open public comment?
So my name is Bo Bumford, and I live in Sumas, and I live about half a mile from this proposed quarry site as the crow flies. And I live in the most wonderful, peaceful, gorgeous area. Almost any time of day, if you walk outside my door and listen, you'll hear birds. That's the sort of setting it is. And the stream running by, which runs by my house, the Sar Creek. And I could go on with a long list of reasons why this application should be denied. But what I'd like to say now is I would like to have the open comment period, as if that's what it's known as, extended for another 30 days past the 18th when the second open period, amended period ends, to give us time to fully prepare our stances on why this should be opposed. So if I just made a formal request, that was my intention. I would like to have that go on record. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else who would like to speak to this open public comment session? Okay. And we do not have any attendees online, so.
Thank you all for coming. Now it's time for commissioner comments. Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, I just want to disclose that I was invited and I walked a couple of the neighboring properties to the quarry that's being proposed.
Commissioner Desmani.
Yeah, I also wanted to disclose that I had phone calls with one of the residents adjacent to the quarry. And I'd like to just ask a quick question of staff on this. I live across from a quarry, actually right across the street from me, and operated by Lakeside Industries on Laurel Road. And you may or may not know that facility. I'm wondering, how does this ranch quarry compare to that one in terms of scopes, size, and footprint and all, and owners, all that kind of thing? Of course, different owners, but any noticeable differences, or are they the same kind of projects?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I'll follow up afterwards.
Any other commissioner comments? All right, let's move on to approval of minutes from the March 23rd meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second my motion.
Corrections or additions? Seeing that there are no corrections or additions, Tammy, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Desmani,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Abstain.
Commissioner Lund, did she come? Okay. Commissioner Mosseri,
Yes.
Commissioner Barton.
Yes.
All right, that is 5 yeses and 1 abstaining, so that carries.
Thank you. So now we are going to look at our main topic for the night, and it's Senior Planner Matt Ahmet is going to make the presentation. So Matt, go ahead.
All right, for the record, my name is Matt Ahmet, representing Planning and Development. And the Growth Management Act requires counties to develop public participation programs for comprehensive plan and development regulation amendments. And so tonight we're bringing this year's update to the Planning Commission for review. And the County Council gives the final approval to the plan. So the plan classifies comp plan and development regulation amendments as levels 1, 2, or 3. Level 1 requires a staff report, notice in the newspaper, posting on the website, and sending notice to the county's email list. It also requires 2 public hearings, one before the Planning Commission and one before the County Council prior to final council action. Level 2 requires all level 1 processes plus developing alternatives when appropriate and review by an advisory committee, department, city, or agency. Level 3 requires all level 2 processes plus a town hall meeting. Proposed changes from last year's plan are shown with underlines and strike throughs in your packet. And some of the proposed changes include inserting the new comp plan and development regulation amendments like zoning code amendments and that type of thing that the County Council initiated for review in 2023. And also deleting amendments that have completed the review process or been withdrawn. So we sent out an email on April 10th requesting that a specific reference to Whatcom Transportation Authority be added to section 3.2 of the plan about agencies being consulted. We had got an email from the WTA requesting that, and we think that is very appropriate. We do have one correction on page 2-2. The County Council resolution docketing the comp plan and code amendments needs to be updated to the 2023 resolution, which is 2023-005. We'd had the 2022 resolution number in there. So that concludes our staff summary. So if you had any questions, we try to address those.
Commissioner Hanson.
Oh, yeah, thank you for your work on that. I just want to know if you've created any response to my suggestion that the public education and orientation element of the participation process be expanded to make it easier for people to truly understand the process, be engaged and be involved. So it's not just the interest groups who get involved.
Yeah, so Jim, you had Commissioner Hanson, you had in there developing websites and so forth, and I talked to our Steve, our assistant director, and I think that would certainly be a good idea. We will do a website for the 2025 comprehensive plan review. We did a website for the buildable lands report. It's still on a county website, so if you just Google Whatcom County buildable lands. And you also kind of talked about a larger picture review, like, for example, with conditional use permits or subdivisions, along with what we're talking about tonight, which is like zoning amendments, the comp plan. And it seems like that would be a good, appropriate thing to do. Now, Steve, has to, as management, has to determine staff resources to do that type of thing. I would also note, as you'll recall, Commissioner McClendon several years ago brought up the idea, having a larger countywide kind of public engagement plan. This plan relates to 2 specific things: comprehensive plan amendments and like code amendments or zoning amendments. And the county executive office, I think, did a survey on that last year, and they were working on a report that I don't think has come out yet, but that might be an appropriate place to, look at bigger picture issues other than just, comp plan and zoning code amendments. But yeah, it certainly seems like a good idea to, put that stuff on the website. PDS management would have to, determine staff resources to do that and update that and so forth. And yeah.
I don't know if this is the right part of the process to belabor this, but I believe I would like to see section 3.1.3, the public, expanded to reference some education tools like on the website, so that it's not just something that gets pushed aside if people are too busy or whatever. And I didn't try to write that because I didn't think that I could really do it in a constructive fashion. That's why I'm wondering if someone on staff could propose something in that regard to encompass the sorts of concepts and responsibilities I'm talking about here.
Well, I'm going to ask Assistant Director Robert to weigh in, because we talked about this in the staff resources and everything. Steve, would you weigh in on that?
Certainly, thanks, Matt. Yeah, Commissioner Hanson, I think we took a look at your email. I think you had a lot of great ideas in there. I mean, our concern really is resources. I think we can do that as much as we can with the resources we have, if that makes any sense. So I think it's fine to put something in there. I just don't want something that's going to tie our hands and make us pull resources from somewhere else that we just don't have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I hate to be dialoguing here. I don't think it's fair to the other groups, so I'll probably try to disengage. But it seems like by better educating the public about how these processes really work, that we save time for everybody in the long run, including the public. If they understand, for instance, that they need to have ideas, they need to go to the work sessions and bring those ideas up at a foundational level of putting this together, rather than coming at the public hearing and being disappointed because a lot of changes aren't made. I think we end up saving a lot of time for everybody, and plus we make our taxpayers, citizens, maybe a little happier, feeling like we have responsive government. So I guess I would like to have a positive commitment than pending resources. So I'll shut up.
Right. Any more questions for Matt? Commissioner Desmani.
So the subject of public engagement is certainly one that we've discussed at the Planning Commission before. It is something that the County Council has discussed before, and it's something that we have lots of room to improve in. So maybe one of the things that would be helpful, understanding the resource constraints are a incremental step as it relates to public engagement that you've heard discussed at Planning Commission and at the County Council, that might at least move the needle as far as improving public engagement. So if the staff would allow it, I'd like to ask that you take the input of Commissioner Hanson, as well as what we've done here before, and come back with some ideas on how to improve public engagement.
Can I pause? Let's pause just for a moment. The questions and the comments that the commissioners are making are good, but we're starting to get into the point of, rather than asking Matt questions that we have about the plan, we're starting to move into the area where we want to change, where we're talking about changing what Matt has brought. So if we can just focus on Matt, and then we'll have a public hearing. And then this is really good comments that you and Commissioner Hanson have been making. So if we can just direct our questions to Matt, and then, are there any more questions for Matt? So if there are no questions for Matt, then it would be time to open the public hearing, and then following that, we'll have a work session. Candy, would you take over?
Okay, so there are no online attendees. Would anyone in the room tonight like to speak to this?
Just a minute, let me open the meeting here.
Oh,
So that's the
sorry.
public hearing. So the public hearing is open. So go ahead.
Okay, so still no attendees online. So is there anyone here tonight who would be interested in speaking to this topic for the public hearing, the public participation plan? No hands are raised, no one's indicating.
So we have no one that has wanted to speak to us in the public hearing on the proposed public participation plan. So we'll close the public hearing. Okay, so now we'll have our work session. So Commissioner Desmond, you were speaking there. Would you like to continue?
I think I made my point. So just repeating again that I'd like staff to suggest what they think would be incremental improvements to how we undertake what I think what Commissioner Hansen's talking about is outreach. There's a difference between posting and outreach. And outreach requires a little bit of education. It means anticipation. And I totally get that's a big resource requirement. And I realize that PDS is not in a situation where they have an abundance of staff to work on things. I hear that loud and clear. I'm also, though, wanting to see our community move forward in this direction of improving how we alert the public of things that matter to them and how to participate in things that matter to them.
You know, with the Lammard, amendments years ago, I know one thing they did was send out postcards to all the property owners, around those things. I think it was, I can't remember how many it was, 17,000 or something. And I think you could sign up for the Notify Me list or something. That's really a management decision, a PDS, to spend those type of resources. A lot of people just look things up on the website. We could, again, pending management's concern about resources, we could just post, each proposed amendment on the website, with planning commission date, council dates. I mean, that's basically what we did for buildable land. That was we do that for bigger projects. We normally haven't done that for smaller projects. So, that could be a easy.
Matt?
Yes.
So one thing too is, we're talking about our overall public participation plan right now. The next couple of years, we're going to be, and Matt's going to talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes. We're going to be really digging into the comp plan, and we're going to be putting together public participation plans specifically around that. And that might be the place where we kind of begin some of these things. To your point, Commissioner Desmani, beginning and starting some of those new processes or those enhancing some of what we're doing now, that might be a good place to kind of begin that. And under that kind of umbrella, and then hopefully continue that forward afterwards. So that's one. You're looking for suggestions. That's one suggestion that I think might be easier on our end to implement.
And I think the executive's office was eventually going to issue a report. They did a survey and look at engagement, not just for the planning department. I mean, we have the planning department, but then this is long range issues, basically amending the comprehensive plan and amending the zoning code or codes. But so this plan does not address like subdivisions or conditional use permits or, those type of decisions that are by the hearing examiner or administrative. It also doesn't address other departments. And I think that's why Natalie McClendon, Commissioner McClendon, had suggested this as a bigger project. So you might have a road project up at Birch Bay that has interest, or, who knows, the county deals with all kinds of projects. And so that may be a a place also to address from a wider point of view. And I haven't seen the survey results or the report. I think that's still in progress, or so.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I agree that I appreciate these initiatives, and I agree that there's outreach and it's important, but also I'd like to see some more transparency on the process. And I thought that it wouldn't take that long for a staff to write a flow chart, or you might already have one you could put on the website that shows shows how these processes work. This comp plan and the critical areas ordinance and these things that we're going to be updating, to me, are really important for the future of this county. And I would like to have an informed public engaged in a timely manner. And it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to have linkage from the website to a page that shows exactly how these processes work and highlighting where people really need to get involved. Seems like for educated folks like you all could sit down and whip it off in a couple hours.
Well, I think that's sort of what I'm suggesting, Commissioner Hanson, is that we do that as part of that comp plan.
Oh, but aren't these isn't this public participation process for the comp plan?
It is. We do an annual public participation plan for, comp plan and zoning code amendments. But we're going, because we have this periodic update that happens once every 8 to 10 years, we are going to have a specific detailed public participation plan for that. And then we'll do a website for that project itself. That's a multi-year, that's probably our biggest project that we've had in some time. So.
And when exactly is that going to happen?
So and I will get into this actually in our next presentation, but so the state of Washington is supposedly going to provide the county with funding because, they pass these state mandates and they're basically null and void unless they provide funding for local jurisdictions to carry them out. However, that funding does not become available until July 1st of this year. So we will be hiring a consultant and the consultant will develop a detailed preliminary draft public participation plan that we would, run by you guys, bring to the council later on this year that would kind of set forth the process, major milestones, how we reach out for that major project.
Oh, thanks for that clarification.
And we would have liked to get started on that process earlier, but because of the state funding cycles, it's not happening.
Are there any more questions or discussion?
So when we is there another presentation that we're going to see now or no for today's discussion?
Are you talking about for the second item on the agenda, or this one? Because we have a short kind of update on the comp plan process and.
Yeah, so actually, I've got comments on the public participation plan or questions.
Okay.
If this is a right time to continue with that then?
Yeah, so let's continue with the proposed public participation plan.
Okay, so first I'd like to understand the deletion of the buildable lands material. Is it basically because we've completed that? Is that why it's being deleted from the?
Yes.
Okay.
So the county council adopted that, and we'll get into this also in the next presentation, but they adopted that report. The cities still have to adopt it, and they are expected to do that in the next month or two.
And that, for example, is why wind is still on the list, even though we've adopted it. This county council hasn't yet adopted it, right?
Right. Once they adopt the ordinance, then we take it off.
Do you know when they're planning to adopt it?
Steve, do you have a idea on that, or?
Sorry, I missed that.
Wind energy?
Oh, wind energy. That will go to council, probably not at their next meeting, but the following meeting.
So in May.
That will be the
May 9th.
introduction. That is my guess.
Okay, so maybe by the end of May. Okay. I have questions. May I continue, Chair?
Can you continue with these questions?
I'm sorry.
Can I continue with my questions?
Yes, you can.
Okay, because I'm asking multiple, I didn't want to ignore other people that have questions. So under 3.2 and it's on page 3.2, I believe. You start and it goes on to the next page, the Whatcom County Advisory Boards, Committees, and Commissions.
Yes.
This may not be entirely pertinent, so forgive me. But some of these are called committees. Some of them are called task forces. I mean, the main thing is kind of committee. Sometimes the ending is a task force. Sometimes it's board, commission, group, network, panel, team, unit. So what do those non-committee endings mean? Do they mean something, or are they all committees as far as you're concerned?
To me, they're basically similar. You know, they're appointed by the county council or they're appointed by the county executive. A lot of times the code has the name, you know, the Whatcom County Code establishes the name. So we just, you know, pick what they are, what the code calls them, or if they're not set forth in the code, what they're called on the website.
You don't sweat over what the last word is in that? It doesn't matter that. So basically they are advisory to the county council. I shouldn't say regardless, because that's not a word my friends tell me, don't say irregardless. Regardless of what that last word is, they're advisory committees.
Yeah, so, you know, what we plan to do, maybe this again relates to both this and the next presentation, but you know, the consultant would develop, you know, proposed amendments to the comp plan in accordance with the GMA requirements, because they, you know, have requirements and they're adopting new requirements possibly this year. Those would be reviewed by some of these advisory committees. Then they would, you know, make any changes or recommendations they think are appropriate. Then we would review it or take it to the planning commission for review. So you would see their recommendations, and then of course your recommendations would go on to council for action.
Yeah, and we can be quasi-judicial, right? On occasion.
Yes, so like a site-specific rezone could be quasi-judicial, like a small site, but this is all legislative. So you know, you can talk to people outside of this, you know, setting, outside of the formal meeting setting and so forth.
So all of these advisory committees in this list never have any decision-making authority, except as an advisory capacity to the council.
Well, I'm not 100% sure. I think that's the case, but yeah, I'm just looking through. And I haven't, you know, personally been to all these committees, or so I believe that's the case, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So I'd like to ask about the WIRA 1 two entities at the end of the list, because what's unique about them is they actually don't coincide with the boundaries of Whatcom County. WIRA 1 by definition is a watershed, and that resides both within and outside of Whatcom County. And there's areas in Whatcom County that are not in WIRA 1, and there's areas in WIRA 1 that are not in Whatcom County. So I'm only bringing that up because I'm trying to impress you, Matt. But
well, I think this is the largest watershed in Whatcom County. I think, what is it? Lake Samish has another one, and I can't remember. I think it's one up by the border. That's in another watershed, but this is just the largest, covers a large area in the county.
Okay, so I don't know if that matters or not. I just wanted to make that point. And then also those two units, the last two bulleted items. The planning unit, some on the planning unit believe it has a link directly to state law, and it's in a special capacity because of that.
Okay.
And then you know, the management team actually, I thought, was reporting to the Watershed Management Board, not to the county council.
Well, there may be a normal protocol for these folks, but these are just committees that we could, you know, ask for input. So I suppose they could decline and say we don't wish to do that if they wanted to.
Okay, that's all my input. It's not really that important. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
Well, it's a little ambiguous about what's an advisory committee. For instance, we heard about the Wyra One planning unit, and if and that's set up for interlocal agreements, et cetera. And so unless there's an agreement with them designating them as an advisory committee, they might be just considered an interest group. And my concern is that there's some talk on them in that committee to providing advisory input on the comp plan update. And since the membership there is very fractious and there's a lot of vested interests battling each other over water issues, I would be concerned that we take input from that group as being advisory to our process. So I'm wondering if things that aren't formally advisory to the county could be considered an interest group rather than an advisory committee.
Well, I don't know. I know, the unit has been in there in the past. So let me just bring this up on the screen here. All right, so you can see that on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I already had it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, the new parts to this plan are shown in red here, underlined. So the unit has been in there in past public participation plans. County council has approved that. And again, these are, entities that may be asked to comment. So I guess I would just say, this is an existing committee. It's been in the PPP in the past, and we're not proposing any changes to it. And it's discretionary, to ask for comment with the May. So.
Okay, I guess it's quasi governmental, doesn't tie it in as being formally advisory to us. We could always ask their advice if we want.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I've got nothing else.
Commissioners, what would you like to do?
I think I'm ready to make a motion. For us to adopt the public participation plan as stated.
I'll second.
Yeah, along with the findings.
Sorry, along with the findings.
We just had a memo on this one, so it's a little more informal.
Oh gosh, you finally got us trained.
So there are no findings of fact. Yeah,
Right.
there's no findings of fact.
Right.
And Commissioner Jackson, I'm taking it you're seconding the whole motion.
There's a long motion, but yes, I'll second the whole thing.
Is there any discussion? Seeing that there is no. Oh, there, sorry. Commissioner
Yeah,
Hanson.
I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like to move under the D section, D12 vacation rentals and D16 mineral resources North Star from level 3 to level 2.
So can I provide some input on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess. Sorry.
I think we need a second to the
Oh,
amendment.
thank you.
I'll go ahead and second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Matt, go ahead.
Okay, so when I met with Assistant Director Robert earlier this week, we talked about these also. as they were in Commissioner Hansen's email. So vacation rentals has already been through Planning Commission and it's on to council. And if you look at the difference between level 1 and level 2, the difference is alternatives may be considered, and then an advisory committee or a department, that type of thing may be consulted, but that would happen prior to Planning Commission review. So our thought on that is this one's pretty far down the road, and it's really past the point where the level 1, level 2 difference would come into play. So that was our thought there. With the MRL, we have no objection to moving it to level 2, but we would note that there's 2 MRL projects in there. They're both level 1 right now. And what the county is doing is we're rolling those specific applications into the countywide MRL review, which is a level 3. So from a practical point of view, we're just kind of conglomerating those in the countywide review, and they'll be a level 3. So they'll have the level 1 plus the alternatives and advisory committee, and then there'll be a town hall.
Right, D10.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it's just kind of confusing why they're designated one level, but actually they're going to be rolled into a countywide, why they're listed at a level they're not going to be reviewed at.
Yeah, well, they came in as individual applications. So typically as an individual application, it'd be a level 1. We have no objection to moving them. It might be good if you want to move one of them to move both of them because they're both, MRLs.
Oh, sorry, I didn't read that correctly. So I meant to, of course, my concern, you can see that people are very interested in this topic, and so I wanted to bring it up to a higher level of scrutiny because of that public interest. So I would propose both of them.
Matt, I was going to ask, can you bring that up on the screen, that part?
Sure.
Well, you have a
So here's level 1 right now, MRL, MRL. So there's 2 of them. So like I said, we have no objection to moving those.
Okay. Yeah, I see. I didn't take the MRL. I didn't get the acronym correctly. That's why.
Okay.
So yeah, I would move. Now they have new numbers. D5, D5 and D8. Okay. What are the real numbers?
You say D5 and D8. D5 is TDR.
Right, but it's crossed out.
Yeah, so we got this one and then we got this one.
Okay, 8 and 16. Got you. Right. Okay. So can I amend my motion to include D8 and D16, and then I'll withdraw the vacation rentals.
That'd be fine with me.
Okay, thank you. So, Tammy, can you tell us what the motion was?
Okay.
So we're all clear.
So the motion would be to move D8 and D16, both related to mineral resources, to level 2 topics.
And I'm going to put, we got the acronym there. That can we kind of informally add that?
Thank you, Matt. That's really great.
And I'll add that up above too.
Yeah,
Commissioner
just a point to clarify in case Commissioner Hansen, I think what you might be kind of confused is there is a D10 that's just a general countywide mineral resource lands review that is a level 3 that I thought you'd referenced in your email originally. And that one is under the level 3 projects versus these 2 that are just site specific applications.
Yes, thank you. That's pretty clear. And I suppose if the countywide is determined before they look at these individually, that will take care of that. But again, I want to be responsive to the public concern because they felt pretty blindsided by that one mine. So
Do we have more discussion?
So just to be clear, so the motion is to move D8 and D16 from level 1 to level 2, is that correct?
That's what I believe that's what a motion I made and I believe.
And that's what I seconded, I think.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Any more discussion? Tammy, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, let's see whose turn it is. Commissioner Hanson,
Yes,
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mosseri,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmani,
Yes, sir.
Bart.
Yes.
Okay, and that was for the amendment. Correct?
Any more discussion on the motion? So the motion is to adopt the proposed public participation plan. And seeing there's no more discussion, Tammy, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mosseri,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmani,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
yes.
Commissioner Bart.
Yes.
So that is that.
Okay, so we have one more topic for tonight. Matt, are you I think you're taking care of that one also? Matt,
Yes, yes.
That's the next steps in the comprehensive plan process. So go ahead.
All right, again, for the record, my name is Matt Ahmet, representing Planning and Development Services. Can you see that, the wording okay there? Is that large enough?
We can see that it's there, but I don't think we can really read it.
I'm gonna blow it up. The thing is, then we'll lose, what year and the time frame. But really the activity is probably the more important thing right now.
That's really good.
Okay, so this chart relates to the City County Planner Group 5-year work program to update the comprehensive plan by 2025 and some preliminary steps that were needed for that. And so the first step was the countywide planning policies. So the Growth Management Act requires the county to adopt countywide planning policies in consultation with the cities. And so these are kind of broad policies, and they govern both the county comprehensive plan and the city comprehensive plans. And kind of the idea is to ensure that these plans are consistent and coordinated. So at the City County Planner Group, we divided this up into 3 phases. Phase 1 was the review and evaluation program, countywide planning policies. That's also known as buildable lands. So the Planning Commission reviewed those a couple years ago, and the County Council adopted those in early 2021. Phase 2 was countywide planning policy amendment procedures. So the countywide or the City County Planner Group put together a proposed process to amend countywide planning policies in the future. And that deals with the county executive or a mayor or city council would have to initiate the amendments to the countywide planning policies, and it would go through a procedure, including recommendation from the countywide plan or from the City County Planner Group. It would go to Planning Commission. It would go to the County Council for initial review, to the cities, and then back to the County Council for final adoption. So that would be kind of the process. Phase 3 is a comprehensive review of all the countywide planning policies. So these relate to things like urban growth areas and transportation, public facilities, water quality. There's a number of things that they relate to that county and city comprehensive plans have to be consistent with. And the City County Planner Group is reviewing those as we speak. And we're proposing, well, actually the state law was amended. The GMA was amended, I think it was last year, Bill 1717, to require countywide planning policies on cultural resources, protection of cultural resources.
Right.
And this year, there's a bill 1181 that integrates climate change issues into the comprehensive plans of county and cities. So the City County Planner Group is proposing some kind of high-level policies on climate change and resilience, that type of thing. So those will come to you at some point. The consultant that we're hoping to get on board this summer, we're going to have them actually draft the cultural protection policies. And then those would come to you and go to the county council and the city councils for approval. So the next item on here is the buildable lands program. And that included several things. One was the data collection. So the county and the cities collected data on building permits, subdivisions, regulatory changes, all that kind of stuff over a 5-year period from 2016 to 2021. And we also created a methodology for estimating how much land is available in existing cities and the urban growth area for future population growth, for future employment growth. And so the Buildable Lands Report was issued last summer of 22. Planning Commission reviewed it, I think, last October and recommended approval. It went to the county council, and the council committee had some concerns over land supply in Bellingham in particular. And so we worked with Bellingham and made some modifications to the Bellingham section of the Buildable Lands Report. I think reasonable measures that they could take with regard to land supply and affordability. And so that report was reissued in February, and the county council adopted ordinance 2023-10. So that's finished the county process. And I should say the items in green have been completed and the ones in white have not. This one is not, yes. This one's not greened out yet because the cities will also need to adopt that report. And so I think that's going to happen in the next several months. And then out of that report, the county and or cities would need to adopt reasonable measures if there has been some gap identified between how development has been occurring on the ground and what's envisioned in the comprehensive plans. For example, for Birch Bay, the comp plan says we should develop, or Birch Bay should develop at 5 to 10 units per acre. Actual development in the last 5 years occurred at 4.5 units per acre. So as a reasonable measure, we will be bringing to Planning Commission proposed amendments to the code that would allow smaller lot sizes and up the density in Birch Bay, so we can reach that comp plan goal of 5 to 10 units per acre. Okay, so interlocal agreements. So we've had interlocal agreements with the cities on planning, annexation, and development since about the year 2000. So these have been 10-year agreements. So we had early 2000s agreements, those expired, and we adopted new interlocal agreements in 2012 with all the cities. And so those expired last year. So we've developed, and each jurisdiction has adopted interlocal agreements. And those relate to, as I mentioned, they relate to growth management planning, kind of how we will review urban growth areas, how we'll do population projections and land supply analysis, that type of thing, things that we overlap with the cities, that we have a joint responsibility with. And they also relate to how annexations are handled, and they relate to development review in the urban growth areas. So, outside the city limits of Bellingham, if there's a development in the urban growth area, the county issues the permit, but we would consult with the city and get comments and that type of thing. So this is all leading up to the comprehensive plan and UGA review that's due by June 30th, 2025. So the state will be providing funds, as I mentioned, for the county and the cities, and the county will hire the consultant, and then the cities will provide some reimbursement to the county for that consultant. So we're working on an interlocal cost sharing agreement. We'll have to have contracts, and this part isn't on there, but we'll have to have a contract with the state of Washington to receive the money. We'll have to do a supplemental budget request for the county to authorize use. We'll have interlocal agreements with each of the 7 cities for, them sending us money to pay the consultant with. So there's, there'll be a lot of financial paperwork associated with that. So hopefully later this summer or possibly early fall, we'll hire a consultant. And we're working on a scope of work right now with the City County Planner Group as to what the consultant would do. And a lot of that is based upon, Growth Management Act requirements. For example, the legislature amended the GMA, I think it was last year or the year before, to beef up the housing requirements because we have an affordability issue. They're looking this year at climate change in Bill 1181, which would provide some significant requirements on the county and the cities to address climate change. But the consultant would also look at, population and employment. We also, in that housing bill that the state legislature passed, now we also have to look at, people who are experiencing homelessness and shelters for those folks. So the county and cities have done traditional land capacity analysis for, homes built in the city or out in the county, but we also have to look at that population, the unsheltered population, and facilities for that. So we're going to have the consultant, take a look at that and suggest methods and so forth to do that. So in the last update in 2016, we had the consultant. Well, let me back up. The Office of Financial Management at the state level, they provide a population projection for the county as a whole. They provide medium, low, and high projections. They do not provide projections for each individual city or urban growth area. And honestly, that high and low range is very large. And so the consultant kind of narrows that a little bit. We'll probably take the OFM medium as our starting point, and then they'll put sideboards with a high and low that are closer than the OFM high and low projections, which anyway, just to get a little more perhaps realism in it, I guess. And then that'll go back to the county and the cities, and we'll look at those population projections and make recommendations on those. Those recommendations will come to the Planning Commission. I didn't have enough room here, but PC is Planning Commission. And this is similar to the process last time. So you will make a recommendation on an overall countywide population projection for 2045, and then allocations to each of the 10 urban growth areas. So for the Bellingham UGA, Bellingham will make a recommendation, and then you will weigh in and make a recommendation on that. We try to work collaboratively, and if there's issues, try to talk those through. And then that'll go to the county council. And this idea, this non-binding multi-jurisdictional resolution, that's something we did last time. We didn't do it the time before in 2009. And the reason we did it last time was that in the 2009 UGA review, there were recommendations for population allocations. And then the county council at that time kind of changed them a little bit late in the process. And some of the small cities had done planning, for capital facilities and land use based upon, what they thought was going to be the population projection. And some of those changed. So we thought last time in 2016, well, let's a little bit earlier in the process. Let's go to our elected legislators and bring to them a proposal that everybody can more or less rely on. It's non-binding, so it could be changed, but it's kind of a good faith. This is probably what we're going to go with unless there's a good reason to change it. So, the cities spend a lot of money on capital planning, and that capital planning takes into consideration growth projections, how much they're going to grow. So that worked pretty well last time. It got tweaked at the end. I think Bellingham, with the consent of Bellingham, projection was lowered a bit. I think they actually, I can't remember who proposed that, but anyway, it kind of gives a starting point where the elected officials are on board with this. Doesn't mean it's set in stone, but it's for planning purposes. Then we'll do land capacity results. And so we look at the land that's vacant, partially used, or underutilized in each urban growth area. How many houses can that accommodate? How much commercial square footage or industrial square footage can that accommodate? And then we compare that, how much supply we have, with these projections for population and employment. Can we accommodate that population in the existing urban growth area or not? If not, then a couple of things could be looked at. Can we increase densities within the existing boundaries? And or should the boundaries of the urban growth area be expanded? And there have been some discussions. We had flooding issues in Sumas and Everson, Nooksack. So there's been some discussion about taking a closer look at those. Do those urban boundaries need to be modified, perhaps to, try to have less flood impacts, that type of thing. So that will get a little bit more scrutiny this year. So transportation model. So the consultant will allocate the population projections by transportation analysis zone, these TAZs, and also by special purpose district boundaries, like, for Fire District 14 of Columbia Valley and Sumas. They'll have a allocate population to that area so that the fire district can do capital planning based upon the growth projection for that area. Same thing for, school districts. Also will be done for water and sewer purveyors. Now, some of these, like the cities, typically update their capital plans during this process, but the water and sewer districts aren't necessarily on that same schedule. So sometimes that gets done at different timeframes. And we've learned, the GMA basically requires, we've learned from growth board cases that, for example, if a city wants to expand their urban growth area, if they haven't done the capital planning for that, planning for water, sewer, fire, schools, and it gets appealed, then the growth board is going to strike it down and send it back to us and say that doesn't comply with GMA. So this is a very important component, especially if urban growth areas are being proposed for expansion. Okay, SEPA, State Environmental Policy Act review. Last time we did an environmental impact statement on the comp plan update. So that involved a draft EIS. We had like 3 land use alternatives, and then public comment was taken, and we developed a final environmental impact statement with a preferred alternative, land use alternative, like where urban growth area boundaries would be, what the population and employment projections would be, and that type of thing. Now, this one is kind of stuck in here, but it can go throughout the process. In the interlocal agreements, the county executive can convene a meeting of elected officials. And this could be like, we did this last time, and the executive kind of chaired the committee, and we had either mayors from the cities or city council folks. I think we had a couple county council folks on there. And they basically got together and discussed, what are the issues? What's your perspective? How does the county see this? How does the city see this? Because we have an interface, like with these urban growth areas, some of those are right next to agricultural lands or forestry lands or mineral lands or, next to a floodplain. So there are a lot of things that overlap in terms of our interests, concerns, perspectives, that sometimes just discussion, and the planners are there kind of listening and providing input, and can kind of take that back in the proposals that are developed. Then we have city and county urban growth area recommendations. So we have the population projections up here, and then those will be translated into actual, do we want to propose expanding the urban growth area? Do we want to propose keeping the urban growth area and increasing densities, or do we have just enough land and adequate densities the way it is? And the Washington Administrative Code for the comp plan updates talks about trying to reach agreement between the county and the cities. So we have a kind of a collaborative process. At the end of the day, the cities will make recommendations on their urban growth area boundaries. Those will come to the Planning Commission for review. And basically, those urban growth area boundaries and densities have to be designed so they accommodate more or less 20 years worth of growth, not much more, not much less, or we risk running afoul of the Growth Management Hearings Board. And so once the commission issues their recommendations, then those will go to the city and county councils for review. And one thing I don't have on this chart, which will be a big part of your work, we'll be reviewing each chapter of the comprehensive plan. So we have chapter 1, introduction, which includes the population employment. Chapter 2 is land use. That's a big chapter. dealing with rural land use, urban land use, all of that. We have chapter 3, housing, chapter 4, capital facilities, chapter 5, utilities, 6, transportation, 7, economics, 8, resource lands. That's, ag, forestry, mineral resources. We have 9 is parks and open space, 10 is environment. And if this bill 1181 passes, we'll probably have to create a 12, which is climate change and resilience, which will have the bill 1181 has a couple different sub-elements to that. One is greenhouse gas emission reduction, and the second element is resiliency. So that's going to be a big task. The state is developing some guidance on that. I think that's out for comment right now, but we can tap into that. But the consultant will also review that. And then we have the Climate Action Advisory Committee that was in the public participation plan that they'll weigh in on that. So that'll be a big part is those chapters. So those will come to Planning Commission and then the County Council. And then kind of the last part is just we have to give notice to Department of Commerce. So one interesting thing in that bill 1181, it was one of the sub-elements, I think, of the climate and resiliency chapter. There was 2 sub-elements. I can't remember which one it was, but basically the county has the option of submitting that to the state for approval. And then it sounds like any appeals would be appeal of the state decision to approve that sub-element or not, which we have not had in the past. I believe in Oregon, the state approves comp plans. Here, we've never had that. We submit them to the state. Once the council approves an ordinance with all comp plan amendments, we submit it to the state, and anybody can appeal that to the Growth Hearings Board. So I'm not 100% sure if that protects the county from appeal, but it would provide a kind of if the state approves that sub-element of the climate chapter, it would provide, I guess, that umbrella, the state thinks it's complying with GMA. So anyway, that is our kind of summary of our process and proposal. If you had any questions.
Commissioner Masseri?
Yeah, last time you said that you did an EIS review and this time we're doing a SEPA review. Why is that different this time?
Well, I don't think it's going to be different. SEPA is the State Environmental Policy Act, and under SEPA, you can either do an EIS or you can do a mitigated determination of non-significance with conditions or a determination of non-significance. So SEPA is kind of the law, and under that law, an environmental impact statement, I'm assuming will be prepared. The SEPA official, the planning director, will determine that. But I think there's a good chance that'll be the case.
Any other questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any unfinished business? Commissioner Masseri?
Could we have that chart emailed out to us?
Sure. With the understanding it's kind of a work in progress. So this gets kind of tweaked, from time to time. But yeah, I'll send that to Tammy and she can send that out.
Yeah, just put a draft on it and the timestamp, right? So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes, thanks for that suggestion. I'll be very appreciative of that chart. Well, one thing that's a little bit confusing to me is the way this is being described. It's as if we, as an entity, are passively accommodating growth in urban growth and rural. And as I understand it, there is another bill that is probably going to go into a conference committee. That's going the middle housing bill, which is more or less going to create greater urban density, which I think is part of the reason for the existence of this whole process is to increase urban density. But I would like to just get on the record saying that I think that we need to proactively work to encourage more rural infill and discourage rural sprawl. And when I saw the land capacity, they're talking about 60% growth in the rural and 40% in the urban. I think we got to turn that around, and that we aren't just passive actors, and that when we're talking about these different chapters and the regulatory rules that go along with them, I think that we need to take active steps to do what we're supposed to be doing, which is encouraging infill and encouraging greater urban density and actively discouraging additional population growth in the rural areas.
So in the comp plan, it has a kind of a division. 16% of growth would occur outside of urban growth areas, 84% in. Buildable land showed we're pretty much on that target over the last 5 years.
Okay, well, we were talking about resilience and accommodation to climate change and population growth. So I think that we really need to be vigilant on increasing or improving that trend.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks for facilitating. Great job. Thank you so much.